Mrs. Nelia Biden, the wife of U.S. Senator-elect Joseph Biden of Delaware, was killed today in a two-car crash near Hockessin, Delaware. A young girl also died in the accident. Mrs. Biden was 28 years old and the mother of 3 children.
His brother Beau and he survived the accident. His father Joe took his first oath of office at age 30 in the hospital room where his young sons were recovering.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States?
Just say, hello, my name is Hunt Biden.
Are we recording this?
I was flabbergasted.
Here's what I think happened to the United States in the past 8 years.
I can say that it was a totally appropriate conversation. It was actually a beautiful conversation.
He ended up polarizing the country in a way that brings us close to fascism.
The issue of Hunter Biden is just ripping Joe Biden's heart out. And it is something he talks about with close friends. He worries about where is this going to go.
And in accompanying that, trains Republicans to just hate rule of law.
So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you and God bless America. Thank you all for being in.
You have to spin up the ball of thread before you can tell the story.
So, Hunter Biden.
Our next guest is probably the most famous board member of a Ukrainian energy company of all time.
When did Hunter become the thing they're next but her emails? They started Benghazi years before the election. I think the timing is the same. They assessed, and, maybe this was Paul Manafort.
Did you ever run into Hunter Biden in Ukraine?
I never did. I've heard his footsteps around.
Maybe it was Trump.
We are looking at lots of different things.
But I think it was readily apparent for a bunch of people, and for those it wasn't, it was easy to sell.
Back in 2014, Hunter Biden took a paid position on the board of Burisma Holdings, a large natural gas producer in Ukraine. The company said they were bringing in Biden to help with, quote, transparency, corporate governance, and responsibility, which seems pretty ironic in hindsight. Even the president's most loyal backers would probably concede.
Which is, if you want to go after Joe Biden, who's actually not corrupt.
Of course, 2 Republican-led Senate committees looked into the question of whether Joe Biden withheld that aid in order to cover up for his son, and concluded the answer was no.
You go after his kid, who has been a walking target for 5 years.
Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody.
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
From hell.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
and I have to respond to that.
Please,
because look,
very quickly.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
What.
This is where he's going.
I want to talk about timeline of Hunter Biden first, and then we can talk about specific aspects of it. We've talked before about how once you get to the laptop, Hunter Biden, from that point forward, becomes this distraction.
By the way, whatever happened to Hunter? Where the hell is he?
And it's really a distraction that debilitates democracy.
Today marks 4 years since the New York Post published the contents of the now infamous Hunter Biden laptop.
It's a distraction that sucks up all of the air during the Biden administration, and that creates a lot of anti-Biden propaganda.
10% held by Hunter for the big guy. I wonder who the big guy was.
It leads people to believe that Biden is corrupt.
The DOJ, FBI, and other federal agencies mobilized to play cover-up and attack Biden's leading political opponent, Donald Trump, in a desperate effort to distract from Joe Biden's failings.
There's no basis for that.
And in fact, when Vice President Biden acted to remove the former corrupt prosecutor in Ukraine, did he do so as part of official United States policy?
Official U.S. policy. That was endorsed and was the policy of a number of other international stakeholders, other countries, other monetary institutions, financial institutions.
And in fact, if he helped to remove a corrupt Ukrainian prosecutor general who was not prosecuting enough corruption, that would increase the chances that corrupt companies in Ukraine would be investigated. Isn't that right?
One would think so.
And that could include Burisma, right?
Yes.
The Hunter Biden laptop has become the founding myth of the big lie.
The biggest lie they told was the Hunter Biden laptop, though. It was unconscionable 3 weeks before the last election. They just looked the American people in the eye and lied.
It has nothing to do with Donald Trump's false claims to have won the 2020 election, but the fact that right-wing trolls were not able to use the Hunter Biden laptop in the same way they used John Podesta's risotto recipe in 2016, the fact that that was thwarted is almost a founding sin for these people.
You know, some of these conspiracy theories have turned out to be true.
Which ones?
Well, like the Hunter Biden laptop.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was a pretty big deal. There was Twitter and others engaged in active suppression of information that was relevant to the public. That's a terrible thing that happened.
It is their privilege to take some non-event and make shit up on the internet. They did that with the John Podesta emails.
Boy, that WikiLeaks has done a job on her, hasn't it?
They were thwarted in doing that with the Hunter Biden laptop. And for that reason, everything else that comes after gets framed in those terms.
Senator, yes or no?
Okay.
Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Let me ask you a question. Is it okay that big technology companies censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, which independent analysis have said it cost Donald Trump millions of votes?
Senator Vance, I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Did big technology companies censor a story that independent studies have suggested would have cost Trump millions of votes?
Senator
I think that's
Vance,
the question.
I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
And I've answered your question with another question.
And we see J.D. Vance to this day saying, I wouldn't have certified Joe Biden's win because 3 years later,
according to polling, of the people that were made aware of the Hunter Biden laptop story, 53% would have changed their vote, including 61% of Democrats.
A very partisan poll.
This is also just one poll from a group that describes itself as right-leaning.
Would say that if the Hunter Biden laptop showed things that 2 years of investigating never found, then they would have changed their mind about supporting Joe Biden.
Stefanik clearly exaggerated the poll results here.
Donald Trump still raises the laptop all the time.
They came to me and would like me to do an interview, but first I want to get an apology because the last time I did an interview with them, if you remember, they challenged me on the computer. They said the laptop from hell was from Russia. And I said it wasn't from Russia, it was from Hunter. And I never got an apology, so I'm sort of waiting. I'd love to do 60 Minutes. I do everything.
People in my Twitter feeds, one of the reasons I stay on Twitter is just to see how these brains work. And people in my Twitter feeds all the time are like, but the Hunter Biden laptop is real. And I'm like, well, first of all, no FBI agent said that they had validated the content. We know by October of 2020, they had not validated the content. They had not even checked to see when material got added to the laptop. They hadn't checked to see when logins from that laptop to Hunter Biden's iCloud work. They didn't check to see whether his normal pattern of getting a new laptop and then logging in both to his iCloud and to one or two of his Gmail accounts doesn't follow with the laptop that actually went to the FBI. That's not what he did. And so they didn't do any of that check. They used it in this trial.
The amazing moment, because I know you guys, I know you in particular, Viva, covered the whole laptop from hell suppression quite extensively. And to see now what happened in the court yesterday, this federal witness, her name is FBI Special Agent Erica Jensen. She was used by the prosecution, all right, this is the government, Special Counsel Weiss, getting up there to verify that that laptop is indeed Hunter Biden's.
And people in my shitter timelines are like, it's real. And when they say it's real, there is an epistemological step going on there. Glenn Greenwald was really important in making this false equation between authentic and real.
But they haven't denied that this is his laptop, which would be the first thing you would do.
This is the key point.
And true. So in other words, Glenn Greenwald made a lot of bank by saying, here's a document and it says this.
So, when we reported the Snowden archive, like when we hit send that first time, like you asked me earlier, there were millions of documents, right? Like we had a high degree of confidence in their authenticity because we had verified a lot of them. You use your intuition, you examine them from a kind of metadata perspective to see if there's indicia of forgery or alteration, but you can never prove the negative that none of the documents has been altered or forged by Snowden or by somebody else, right? Like you just don't know for sure with 100% certainty until you hit publish. And the way that you ultimately find out for sure is if you publish that first report and the people that you're reporting about don't come back and say, what the fuck are you talking about? That's not a real document. We didn't ever do that. That's not our document. That's forged. And it was when the NSA didn't say that I don't think I've ever been so happy in my career, in my life, because that was proof that the archive was real.
A lot of his claims about what the Snowden documents said were wrong. Were wrong in real time and have proven to be even wronger since. But because he had authentic documents, people believed what he said was true. And the same thing with the Hunter Biden laptop.
The IRS, FBI, and Department of Justice all knew the Hunter Biden laptop was real before the 2020 election.
The laptop definitely had access to his iCloud account at one time. But that doesn't mean that all of the content on it had not been tampered with. At least one thing that the laptop that the New York Post relied on was tampered with, and Jack Maxey did a lot more. And this is the important thing, is the claims that the New York Post was chasing, that the Wall Street Journal were chasing in 2020, have to this day never been substantiated. Not with years of looking at the Hunter Biden laptop, not with all of the other material that the government got. David Weiss looked for 5 years and never substantiated a FARA claim.
FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. It deals with a part of Washington, arguably the swampiest of them all. These are not only lobbyists, but people who are working in the interest of a foreign country. And those countries aren't necessarily U.S. allies. The law requires these men and women to periodically disclose related activities and finances for the government to track. And that's because these lobbyists are U.S. citizens themselves, and the government wants to follow their work to make sure it's above the board.
Never substantiated FARA claim. In fact, if you look at the laptop, you see Hunter Biden over and over again saying, I can't do anything that will require me to register. He's outsourcing certain things to people who can and do end up registering for FARA. Nothing about the laptop is true, except for the dick pics and the cocaine. But prosecutors, importantly, even altered some of the cocaine stuff. Obviously, the hard drive is not authentic because it is a copy of a laptop that once had access to Hunter Biden's iCloud account. The laptop has all of his cookies and passwords in it. Right? So even if you just turn it on without air gapping it, you've just hacked his account.
Air gapping is the security measure that involves physically isolating a computer or network and preventing it from making connections to other network devices. Air gaps help protect critical systems or data from potential attacks like malware or ransomware.
The chances that Rudy Giuliani didn't do that, virtually nil, right? Because he's technologically an idiot.
NBC News is reporting Giuliani, had his phone in his pocket, unknowingly then pocket dials an NBC reporter multiple times, which leads to multiple voicemails of Giuliani in conversation he wasn't expecting anybody to hear. It's, okay. Here's an excerpt from one of those calls from last week.
The problem is we need some money. We need $20,000.
So lots of things going on there. And so that's why I'm going to write a post called Epistemology of Dick Pics.
Developments tonight in the Hunter Biden saga. A cache of over 128,000 emails from his laptop are now on a searchable database, courtesy of former Trump aide Garrett Ziegler.
But the point is that it is a founding myth because circumstances prevented them from pulling off in 2020 what they did with the John Podesta emails in 2016.
What? Why did they actually put that letter together? How was it put together? It was conveniently right before an election.
There's this moment in 2020 that people think of, which is the laptop.
In October 2020, a New York Post article said that emails purportedly showing shady dealings in Ukraine by Hunter Biden were found on a laptop computer that he supposedly left in a Delaware repair shop in 2019. The details were sketchy at best.
And that Trump has tried to turn into a scandal.
How do you think you were robbed? Everybody always cuts you off. I'm going to allow. Are you going to present this ever? Do you think like?
Let me just give you one more before. 51 intelligence agents come up that the laptop was from Russia. It turned out to be totally false.
51 former intelligence agents, right?
Even accusing the 51 spooks involves a lie. All they said was that it seemed like a Russian information operation. They didn't say they were sure. They said the emails could be authentic and it still be an information operation. That's what was the case with John Podesta. That reality has been buried under years of disinformation about what the spooks actually said.
They say that made, I don't believe it's this much, but it doesn't have to. I lost by I didn't lose, but they say I lost, Joe, they say I lost by 22,000 votes. That's like 1/10 of 1%, less than that. It's a tiny little thing. 22,000 votes spread over this period. So 51 intelligence agents lied. They lied. They knew it was. It was Hunter's. It was from his bed. It was Hunter's laptop. They said it was created by Russia. Russia. It was the Russia hoax.
But since then, the same people who pat themselves on the back for not chasing the laptop.
And tonight, the Trump campaign is accusing Twitter and Facebook of censorship after the social media companies blocked the spread of an unverified story about former Vice President Joe Biden's son and a laptop allegedly full of his old emails. It's a story raising concerns about whether it's real or just designed to sow confusion in the final weeks of the election.
Chase the laptop. And chase the dick pics.
The laptop data we had analyzed showed no evidence it was faked or tampered with.
Digital forensic investigator Mark Lanterman was previously a member of a Secret Service electronic crimes task force.
There was one thing that got my attention, and that was a voicemail.
It's Dad. I called to tell you I love you. I love you more than the whole world, pal.
And chase the trial.
We begin tonight, as we have for most nights over the past several weeks, at the courthouse, but not this time to cover a presidential candidate. Instead, it's for the president's son.
Well, Lewis.
The Washington Post editorial board made a stunning decision today that for the first time in 36 years, the Washington Post editorial board will not endorse a candidate for president. Washington Post CEO Will Lewis writes this about the non-endorsement today, quote, "We see it as consistent with the values the Post has always stood for and what we hope for in a leader."
Well, Lewis, even earlier this year, said he was asked by Ben Smith,
Semaphore co-founder and editor-in-chief,
how do you avoid being accused of bias? And he pointed to this terrible article about Hunter Biden by one of their main dick pic snippers, Matt Weiser, did not disclose that he had kind of fucked over Hunter Biden because he had erroneously, I don't think intentionally, but he had erroneously misreported how much Hunter Biden was getting paid for paintings.
Hunter is getting ready to sell art. He has told us that this is his new job. He is a first-time artist, no training, of course. The pieces are being priced between $75,000 and $500,000 a piece. You called this scheme genius. Why?
Well, it's genius because in a very corrupt way.
And therefore created this whole scandal that it was some influence operation plot. Ruined Hunter Biden's life, ruined the gallerist's life.
Gallery owner George Burgess is a longtime friend of Hunter Biden's.
There's a level of authenticity, and that it's so many that I don't find in a lot of artists.
And he doesn't know a lot of the rules of art, which is why he can break them.
He was a Trump supporter.
Burgess maintains Biden deserves to hang next to the greats like Elaine de Kooning and Helen Frankenthaler, hoping the political scrutiny dies down and artistic acclaim abounds.
What's the one thing you want people to walk away with about what you're doing and who Hunter Biden is?
Sit in front of one of his paintings and you just allow yourself to see and feel what that painting is doing. You're not going to regret it.
And so that is how the press has dealt with Hunter Biden, even though there's really serious issues with how we got to that prosecution. And so that is why it is so important. I think where we are sitting just after the election in 2024, I think we can say that a good deal of the negativity directed at Joe Biden is due to the Hunter Biden operation. A good deal.
If your last name wasn't Biden, do you think you would have been asked to be on the board of Burisma?
I don't know. Probably not. I don't think that there's a lot of things that would have happened in my life that if my last name wasn't Biden.
Like Trump, when he thought he was running against Joe Biden, he was like, great, me and Russia have been overtly working on this influence operation about Joe Biden since 2018, and this will make it easy for me to really blow out the election.
No, I don't regret being on the board. What I regret is not taking into account that there would be a Rudy Giuliani and a president of the United States that would be listening to this ridiculous conspiracy idea, which has, again, been completely debunked by everyone.
I think people at home are thinking, how could that not have crossed your mind? Or you wouldn't have felt just a little bit in your gut, like, maybe this isn't a good idea to go and sit on the board of this Ukrainian company.
I said to you, in retrospect, I wish that my judgment...
Right, but at the time, you never thought, this might not look right.
You know what? I'm a human. And you know what? Did I make a mistake? Well, maybe in the grand scheme of things, yeah. But did I make a mistake based upon some unethical lapse? Absolutely not.
What happened in the election, I think, is you really have fascism taking over our communications, and both in the mainstream press, but also in the way that Jim Jordan and James Comer mobilized it.
We've had countless press conferences. This is an investigation about public corruption at the highest levels. We have accumulated mountains of evidence that's concerning to an overwhelming majority of Americans.
You see Congress being singularly directed at this operation.
I think we're going to allow you in there to see the piles and piles of documents, of bank statements, of emails, of text messages that we've worked very hard on in this committee over the last 8 or 9 months.
Really, I think, helps us understand how we got here. So first, we should talk about how we got there.
It was a water-damaged laptop left and apparently forgotten at a computer repair shop. And when the repair guy saw what was on it, he says he became concerned, and not just because of the dirty pictures.
John Paul Matt guy's a blind computer repairman from Wilmington, Delaware.
I think some people will go, well, hey, wait a second, aren't you just leafing through someone else's private property?
It can be perceived that way, but again, he hired me to do that.
McIsaac says he also found documents that show payments made to Hunter Biden from a Ukrainian energy company that have become the center of a political firestorm.
I definitely had a legitimate concern for national security, and that's why I went to the FBI.
McIsaac says he turned the laptop over to the FBI, but after 8 months of waiting in 2020 during the presidential campaign, he approached Donald Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani.
I expect we're going to learn more about him and his network. I mean, the people he ended up networking with include weird people.
Hunter's got a very distinctive, kind of entitled, high-pitched voice, so it's easy to recognize.
Let me go back. So the story is somebody walked into John Paul McIsaac's computer repair shop in April of 2019 and dropped off 3 laptops, and he fixed 2 of them.
When the machine had failed overnight, I had to boot it up, kind of compare what was able to be copied from the laptop to the server. And in that comparison process, when I'm going by folder to see where the data transfer tourniqueted and I'm going to have to pick it up again, that's when I realized that there was a lot of sensitive and embarrassing material on the laptop. Also some questionable criminality as well. So I was concerned.
The person came back, took those 2 away, and the other one he made copies of. The way in which he made copies of was drag and dropping it. And that's important because it's not a forensic copy of the laptop?
I knew the condition of the machine, so I knew that they were going to be hard-pressed to do a forensic copy.
So he makes a copy, and he claims he's alarmed by things he sees.
What sort of stuff did you see specifically that raised alarms for you?
Well, a lot of personal stuff, sensitive stuff that nobody would want out. Also, some financial documents, a lot of money being exchanged. So that kind of, it really wasn't that big of a concern for me. It was just kind of, this is disgusting, this is gross, and this is, questionable. But it was just a job. And I think it was a couple of weeks later is when his father announced his candidacy that I started to get concerned.
The things that he claims he sees are Burisma. He claims that there's communications from Mykola Zlochevsky in there.
Mykola Zlochevsky is the founder of Burisma Holdings, which is one of the largest private natural gas producers in Ukraine.
There's not. There's communications from a handler from Mykola Zlochevsky who speaks English. He claims that there's alarming things about Igor Kolomoisky.
The question that arises is, who this Igor Kolomoisky is. Kolomoisky founded and controls Privat Group, through which he controls thousands of companies in virtually every industry in Ukraine.
There's absolutely not. The only thing in the laptop about Kolomoisky is stuff that's public, and that was the excuse he gave for going to the FBI. In October of 2019, we don't know whether it was before or after Lev Parnas got arrested.
I was sent to meet with Dmitry Firtash because Dmitry Firtash had resources. He's an oligarch that was in Vienna waiting to be extradited to the United States. But he was very close with Vladimir Putin, Ukraine, and lots of characters in that part of the world. And my objective at the time was to have him help us lean on Mykola Zlochevsky and get dirt on the Bidens.
And what type of dirt were you trying to get?
We were searching for Hunter's hard drive that we were told was out there.
And I think the timing is quite interesting.
I was really, really concerned about local politics, local law enforcement, loyalties to the Biden family in this area. So I enlisted my father to reach out to the FBI in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and which he did.
At that point, the FBI told him, we don't think you own that.
It started out the same story when I told it to the FBI in December of 2019. It's remained the same story. Hunter Biden came into my shop. He came in with 3 liquid damage laptops. I explained to him the data recovery process, explained to him the 90-day abandonment procedure, and he signed that document allowing me access to those drives.
Eventually, later, in December, the FBI comes to John Paul Matt Geisler and says, okay, we want the laptop. Again, this is happening all at the same time as impeachment. And Matt Geisler gives them both a hard drive that he made, a copy of the laptop, and the laptop itself.
I knew that there was a potential of somebody trying to sneak a rooster past the sunrise or try to sneak something in there to kind of muddy the waters. So that's why I kept another copy that I made at the same time that I made the first copy. It was a copy I gave to my father to give to the FBI back in October of 2019 to alert them of this laptop and the criminality on it. And that copy has remained untouched.
What was introduced at trial was the laptop itself. There's problems with that hard drive. And that hard drive is kind of the genesis of the hard drive that Rudy Giuliani got. And Rudy Giuliani gave copies of that to a bunch of people, and they added to it. Jack Maxey is one of the people who was disseminating the laptop most widely.
Jack Maxey, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin as we always do with the sign of the cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
And that in particular had a lot of stuff added to it.
Let's get to some of the proof that this is indeed real. If you would, tell us about that.
Well, for example, I had several retired CIA agents look at it, had a former contractor from NSA, a cybersecurity experts, everybody who has looked at this confirms that it is 100% real. As one person said to me, if we devoted all the resources of Langley for a decade, we couldn't recreate this because there's so much metadata connecting everything together.
When we, who is Steve Bannon's buddy, altered some of the images.
The way we drove up Biden's negatives, the only thing that stopped the momentum was the hard drive from hell, right? And two parts of that were Luda's editorial creativity over the pictures, and really the CCP involvement. That's what shocked the American people. Sleepy Joe, he never drove up Biden's negatives. It was only when we got the hard drive and got it to you that in the post. Yeah. If you look at here's where the Bidens fucked up. From the day the Post story came out, and then you started pumping out, we got you the stuff, and you started just dumping it out, and then the internet started picking up, and they suppressed it. Remember, the best thing that happened to us was Twitter and Facebook suppressing it, because then everybody wants to see it.
Some of the things that were disseminating in October of 2020, they actually were altered. There is a picture that maybe the Murdoch press in England published of Hunter Biden with a pipe in his mouth that was not the right kind of pipe. That was a frame job, but it was a real picture. So in other words, somebody took a picture of him, set up a picture of him. Somebody had access to him to set up a picture of him. First of all, there is an analysis at FBI that lays out problems with the hard drive copy that John Paul MacIsaac made. We know this from Gary Shapley's notes.
My name is Gary Shapley. I worked as a special agent for IRS criminal investigation for 14 years.
We don't know what the problems are, but prosecutors describe that the Celebrate report, which is what you get when you export all of the data from a device, the Celebrate report for the hard drive is 62% longer by page count than the Celebrate report for the actual laptop. And there are possible explanations for that. The most innocent, we know, or by his description, MacIsaac made copies overnight 3 times. If he copied half of the laptop each time, that's not what he said he did, but if he did that, then there would be roughly 60% duplicate. It's possible that things got opened effectively on the hard drive, leading to more volume, leading to more stuff. It's possible the laptop includes passwords to a bunch of Hunter Biden's accounts. It also includes cookies. So if you have the laptop or the hard drive, you've got access to Hunter Biden's digital life.
We hammered this guy every day for 10 days with the worst pictures in the world, drug addict, taking money from CCP, from Chinese spies. No response. Nothing. And the negatives just keep going up.
And if the lawsuits, for example, the one that's still active is against Garrett Ziegler, who's the guy who made an entire website dedicated to the content of the laptop. If that lawsuit goes forward, there's no reason to believe it won't, but if that lawsuit goes forward, then we may learn that not necessarily Ziegler, but possibly people before Ziegler got the hard drive accessed Hunter Biden's iCloud, accessed his bank account. The laptop that the FBI got cannot be said to have integrity. And that was washed over in the trial.
They used forensic tools to extract data from the laptop after obtaining a search warrant December 13th, 2019. December 13th. So by that date, they knew that it was Hunter's. And they went through exactly how they figured it out. That they cross-referenced Hunter Biden's iCloud storage accounts with the computer's serial number. This is all testified to by the FBI agent.
Again, it only came in the Delaware trial. I have a suspicion that over the course of preparing for the Delaware trial, the prosecutors came to realize that, in fact, the laptop was problematic, and so they were not going to use it for the tax case. They didn't need to rely on it for the tax case. Hunter Biden was such a mess in this period, even Hunter Biden's financial life was problematic.
Like I said, you don't need a laptop. You have my book.
I showed, if you look at the emails in his account, it's clear that somebody accessed his Venmo account from the LA Hills somewhere 12 minutes before somebody accessed his Venmo account from Las Vegas. First time access. So that obviously couldn't be Hunter Biden. The most reasonable explanation for it is it was his drug dealer, because he was giving drug dealers access codes, like one-time access codes to his bank account as well.
You talk in great detail about alcohol and drug abuse, including extended periods of like sort of nonstop crack use. Why did you decide to just lay it all out? Was that a tough decision?
I think that the value of the story and the reason I'm so vivid about it was to let people know that are suffering and sick in the same way that I was, and it's millions of people, is that they're not alone.
His drug dealer at the time was Russian. And in this exact period, in early August 2018, and there's a video online of him describing this.
They didn't know whether I was dead or not at first.
Why didn't they just come over and check?
They checked to see if I was breathing, and I finally showed signs of breath. At first, I wasn't breathing. I was eating face down for I don't know how long. Anyway, with my computer, I'd taken tons of just left that cam on. He would always put it. He had my passcode and all that kind of shit. You know what I mean? And it was crazy shit. And somebody stole them during that period of time. And they did this kind of pretend search. I think he's the one who stole my computer.
He blacked out, basically. It could be his own doing, right? But it could be that he was drugged. There was a Russian sex worker and his Russian drug dealer involved. They took a device of his. I'm not sure whether it's an iPad or whether it's a laptop. Sometimes when his devices walk away, you can see that he shut them down, but it took some time. Sometimes when his devices walked away, he didn't do that. In the 3-year period leading up to the drop-off the handoff, there's all sorts of devices that disappear or all sorts of new devices that go into action, and we don't know where the prior device went. And if somebody had that device, they would have, for a period, access to Hunter Biden's iCloud. His digital life from 2016 on was always in a state of half compromise.
When they ask you if that was your laptop, you say you don't know, which is hard to believe unless you read the book. Yeah. And then it's kind of like, I'm surprised you have shoes on.
Former exotic dancer that was one of his mistresses in 2018, and one of the things she testified at trial is not only did she have one-time access to his bank account, but he had accessed his accounts from her laptop. And so one time when she was trying to figure out where he was, she looked up online, go find my phone, to find him. So she was using her laptop, which had access to Hunter Biden's digital life, to basically spy on him. Now, the prosecutor said she did nothing wrong, but nevertheless, if she had that, then it's likely other people had that.
I've not used crack, but I do feel like I understand it now. And I did think it was especially interesting when you wrote about the fact that what happens the first time you use it is something you chase for the rest of the time you use it. It's never what it was that first time.
It never. And that's like every drug. To tell you the truth, the most insidious drug for me, and I think for many people that deal with addiction, is alcohol. But crack brought me to a place that I'd never had been to before.
There's also cases, for example, where in the course of 2 days, the same sex worker got paid via 3 different financial methods, got paid more than even a very pricey sex worker, got paid crazy amounts. One of those is Russian as well. The madam that Hunter Biden was working with in the time is either Ukrainian or Russian. So it is very easy to understand how his life, if the Russians or Ukrainians wanted to compromise Hunter Biden's life, would have been child's play.
I was at every hotel in Los Angeles, basically.
You'd hole up there until they threw you out.
Every motel, every hotel, until they wouldn't have a room for me the next day.
One of the stories was you went just down the block from us, to Sunset and La Brea, and you looked for some guys who might be able to get you something. Yeah. And then you wound up getting it and using crack with them. Were those guys dressed as Spider-Man by any chance?
After the August device walks away, Hunter Biden gets a new laptop on September 1st, 2018. We have a receipt for it. We know exactly where he bought it. We know when he got it. He started using it the same way he started using all his other devices, which is he first logged into iCloud, and then he logged into, in this case, as I recall, both of his Google accounts. He had a business account and the account he used to reach out to sex workers. That's how he normally used new devices. The day or 2 days before he bought the gun, that is the basis for the charge in Delaware, he lost 2 phones. So he replaced them, and it took him several days to replace them, and he was using an old phone for those days, which that phone, the old phone that he used for a few days, got saved to the laptop. But the FBI never got that phone. And so it's very interesting how it got saved to the laptop, because the laptop that the FBI got didn't exist yet. It was not in Hunter's custody yet.
What I really wanted to write the book for was to humanize people suffering from addiction. But also, I wrote the book, and more than anything, it's a love letter to the people that are loving someone that's struggling with addiction. Because it's so hard for them to understand why it is that their love just can't get through. Why it is that if they just love them more, that somehow they would be able to cure them. And the one thing that I found to be more powerful than the most powerful love I knew, which is the love of my family, was my addiction.
So he goes through 2 phones around October 11th. And then on October 14th, this new laptop accesses his iCloud account. And that is the only basis via which the FBI used to attribute it to Hunter Biden. They didn't say, we've proven that you were at the computer repairman. They never said that. But when the laptop accesses his iCloud, it doesn't do what Hunter Biden normally did, which was access his Gmail account for another month at least. Like, there's not a new access to his Gmail account until November. At the time in November, where that Google account access happens, he is with Keith Ablow, who is a Fox shrink, was accused of sexually harassing, assaulting 3 of his patients, and was giving Hunter Biden ketamine treatment.
They are pretty disturbing allegations in these lawsuits. He's practiced here at Newburyport for a number of years. As I mentioned just moments ago, he came out to address those accusations.
A male, a public person, and a Trump supporter. And so am I surprised? Yeah, but shocked? No.
Now, Dr. Keith Ablow won't elaborate on any possible political motives in these lawsuits, but he is denying allegations of sexual relationships with patients. One patient even says that he had her tattoo his initials on her body to show his ownership.
There's a theory out there, hasn't been confirmed, that Keith Ablow was involved in the laptop caper.
Kevin Morris's theory that Keith Ablow is the source of the laptop originally, he's the leak, is absurd.
Wait, can you just unpack this a little bit?
The first time that Hunter Biden could have access to his Gmail account from the new laptop is when he's up in Massachusetts with Keith Ablow.
The brain is like the laptop. Every experience a person has had from birth affects that individual. And unpacking that for someone, giving them back their story, is incredibly powerful. So if someone came to me addicted to crack cocaine and said, I had horrible experiences as a child, terribly traumatic experiences, and, some are known about Hunter Biden, so I'm not breaking confidence here. If you're in a car and your mother and sister are killed while you're in the back seat,
yes,
you got a lifetime of struggle in front of you.
For sure.
That's the best case, right? If you're not a serial killer, you get a B- in the Ablow School of Psychiatry.
Keith Ablow, by the way, is friends with Roger Stone.
I texted Roger Stone, and I said, man, me, you, and Trump raided. Who doesn't get raided? And because he's Roger Stone, he texted right back, the bad guys.
Yeah. He's right. Unfortunately, he's right.
One of Roger Stone's buddies Tyler Nixon is from Wilmington and has a gripe against Beau Biden because he got busted for drugs in Delaware.
And nearly 5 years ago, Beau, the former Attorney General of Delaware, tragically lost a battle with brain cancer.
The first memory I have is of lying in a hospital bed next to my brother, holding my hand, staring into my eyes, saying, "I love you. I love you. I love you."
Very tight network. But anyway, there is reason to believe that Hunter Biden's account was packaged up on basically January 16th, 2019. Again, he's back with Keith Ablow. At that point, he's staying in a cottage that Keith Ablow has right behind his then practice.
Okay, so you have effectively a guest house.
That's
that
right.
People suffering from probably addiction, I would think, or other
addiction,
problems.
depression, wanting to write new chapters of their life stories, metaphorically speaking, have spent time there. It's very private, et cetera. Of course, not so private if you end up going out to dinner many times, as we did in our town, and if you're a person...
You and Hunter Biden.
That's right, yeah.
And he was having problems accessing the internet. There's this set of emails from before that where Ablow is pretending like he's helping Hunter get in touch with these orthopedic surgeons. And Hunter actually, his emails are not going to the surgeons. And Ablow is creating this appearance that the emails are going to the surgeons. So it's not clear what kind of email access he had at the time.
It's just wild. I don't know what to... I mean, I knew Hunter Biden because he was my neighbor, which is kind of weird, but we live near each other, so not that weird. But I just can't... did you think it was strange when Hunter Biden called you?
Man, not really. Because, again, I've had people that I've wanted to help and very gratified to be able to help who have come from far and wide, and sometimes with very different opinions than mine. You know, I was also the first one to say on national television that transgenderism was a very bad idea and that folks shouldn't let their kids watch Chaz Bono on Dancing with the Stars. I said, don't let your kids watch. And then Megyn Kelly said I was spreading hate.
Anyway, that's when his life gets packaged up. When he leaves Ablow's practice around February 6th, the laptop that he purchased, that we know he purchased on September 1, 2018, is left there. That's the story. The story is that the cleaning lady came in and it was a mess, which is consistent with what we know about Hunter Biden at the time, and there was a laptop there. And Keith Ablow never tells Hunter Biden that the laptop is there. It's discovered when the DEA raid him the following year.
I mean, did you look at the laptop?
No, never. That's why this theory from Hunter's pal and benefactor, his lawyer, Kevin Morris, is absurd. Because they could open it up. He has it back. And they could do some sort of forensic look at it. Not only did I never open the lid, I never turned it on. I have no interest in looking at somebody's private stuff.
Well, you were his shrink, so you would know his secrets anyway.
Exactly.
And then it is arranged that Hunter Biden gets that laptop back. Then Hunter Biden gets another laptop when he leaves, and another phone when he leaves Keith Ablow's place. It's not clear what happened. I mean, I have theories, but not theories that I can confirm. It's clear that the FBI never chased any of this, or certainly didn't chase any of this before they built the gun case around it. Didn't chase any of it, which is just shocking. Like, it's shocking that the digital life of the former vice president's son could be packaged up as it was. It's shocking that he could be compromised as often as it was. And it's shocking that when the FBI got this laptop, they investigated Hunter with it. They didn't investigate how it came into their possession. I don't know going forward whether we should learn more about what happened with the laptop. The Garrett Ziegler suit is one way we'll do that.
So, ma'am, let me go to you, because Hunter Biden is obviously in a different relationship now. He is married. He has a son with his wife, Melissa Cohen Biden. And there was a very intense moment, it sounds like today, that one of our team members witnessed, where she called a former Trump aide who was at the trial I'm quoting here, a Nazi piece of expletive, a Nazi piece of blank, essentially. It seems like an indication that emotions really are high at this moment.
Garrett Ziegler. He is the former Trump administration official who founded a company that posted all the data from the cloud, from the laptop, in a public searchable fashion.
He has never said he brought it to Isaac. He says, I don't know.
Yeah. No, look, I really don't know. And the fact of the matter is it's a red herring. It is absolutely red herring. But I am absolutely, I think, within my rights to question anything that comes from the desk of Rudy Giuliani. And so I don't know is the answer.
Do you ever wish you'd had Apple Care?
He was such a wreck at the time. It's certainly possible he brought it in. I think he believes he did not. I think he believes his signature was forged on the drop-off letter because of the way his digital life was so compromised. The other thing they said at trial, and this is insane, is that John Paul MacIsaac sent an invoice to Hunter Biden at his iCloud email account, but there's no response. This is not attribution. There was an exchange there. All it is that something ended up in Hunter Biden's email box, right? His email was public. If you had the laptop, you had everything. You had his email password, you could get into his bank accounts. But even if Hunter brought those in, it doesn't mean that the laptop wasn't packaged up. And there's something that people need to understand. There is no reason Hunter Biden would need to bring the laptop to a computer repairman to get the data off, because he generally backed everything up to iCloud. So he doesn't need anything on the laptop. It's on the iCloud, And so that story never made sense, but so much about the story doesn't make sense. And I'll say this, too. There's a video you've played. It's a recent Trump video. And he says...
It was Hunter's. It was from his bed. It was Hunter's laptop.
That's true of the laptop that got left at Ablow's. It's not true of the laptop that was shared with the FBI. And I found that to be an interesting slip.
I really do believe they consciously understood that the most important thing to my dad was me and his family, not just me, but me, my sister, my brother, and his family. And if they could attack me and keep me locked in my prison of addiction, or do worse to me, that to his one remaining son, that it would be almost impossible for him to, in some way. But they don't know him. They don't know. They don't know us. And what they didn't count on was that that has always just made us stronger. It made us. If we were steel, we were reinforced steel by the end of this campaign.
I've covered high-profile trials. The Libby trial was every bit as high-profile as the Hunter Biden, higher profile, because there were journalists testifying.
I know you've been analyzing the Scooter Libby trial for some time. The verdict came down today, guilty on 4 out of 5 counts. Can you explain it for people who don't have law degrees out there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fairly simple. What the jury decided today was that Louis Libby lied. When the grand jury...
that's so alliterative.
Yes, right. Louis Libby lied. When the grand jury asked him questions about his role in that Valerie Plame Wilson affair, when federal investigators asked him about it, and finally when the prosecutor asked him about it. And, you can't do that. We know from the Martha Stewart case, you can't lie when you're under oath.
It's once again proof that it's not the crime, it's the cover-up, right?
But the Hunter Biden trial in June in Delaware was Tiger Beat coverage. I had never seen something so shameful. It was just like slathering celebrity focus and no understanding of the legal issues. And in fact, one of the things that's interesting is that the journalists stayed at the same hotel as some of the jurors, and may have tainted the jurors, because the journalists all were like, we know Hunter Biden's icky, and so he must be guilty.
Mired in grief, he entered a relationship with Beau's widow afterwards, telling us they came together at a time when no one else could understand the degree of pain they were going through.
The jurors were not. The jurors were like, we don't think you've proven X, Y, and Z. That's what they say at the end of the first day. Then they go back the second day, and they're like, he's guilty. And in between, they're at the hotel with a bunch of journalists.
The worst thing that ever could have happened to me happened when Beau died. I got up, and I'm standing here, and the president wants to know where I am. I'm right here. I'm living my life.
Thanks for listening to Ball of Thread. Expect a new episode about every 2 weeks until the election. To support this series and get answers to your questions with a bonus Q&A podcast, go to patreon.com/balloffthread. You can join us for as little as $1 a month. We appreciate your sharing this work with anyone who cares about the Constitution, and please consider giving us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts.